Hi, this is Angelo and Wendy, Sacred Inclusion Network, and we're here to talk about sacred conversation for activists. And Wendy, if you don't know, is a trained counselor, international speaker, and spiritual teacher and course creator. And she is also a facilitator of the Sacred Conversation method. So let me just start, Wendy, by saying a little bit to people that aren't familiar with sacred conversations as to basically what it is. Essentially, it's a kind of a collective space where people get in touch with whatever their core mission is and think about what's blocking them from actualizing it and identifying their next steps in order to do that. And I know you've been through it a couple of times and you've actually trained to do it. So I think a good place to start is for you to maybe explain, maybe what you got out of the process.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly beautiful process. The first time I went through it, I was blown away at how quickly the people involved in the experience were able to step into a place of authenticity and of vulnerability and true connection. What I found is that the experience of being in a sacred conversation and participating in the process is a lived experience of Brene Brown's definition of true connection. And according to Brene Brown, true connection is when one person is being truly seen by another, which implies being fully present and being understood and listened to. It's really creating a sacred space between two people. It opens up trust and connection. And that experience of being truly seen and truly listened to is not only sacred, but it's healing as well. It in the sociological research, having someone listen to you without their own agenda
Mm.
is 70% of the healing that takes place in a therapeutic relationship or a counseling relationship.
Mm.
70%.
Wow.
So the impact of being in a situation where you have the opportunity as an individual to experience truly being seen, listened to, um, gives you um, something that is uncommon in how people relate to each other at a day to day level.
Yeah, there's something about the collective, because I can sit here all day and think about what I'd like to do and what my aspirations are. But when there's like four mirrors and we're all mirroring each other, to me that's a powerful thing.
It's very powerful. Yeah.
Well, you have stepped up to offer one especially for activists. What are your thoughts as to why it might be useful for activists? What sort of maybe issues that activists face in general? Just your thoughts about it.
A couple different things. Um, I myself have had a transformation around the title of being an activist this year, given all of the changes in the world and everything the world population has had to face, but specifically in the United States with the new civil rights movement, the revolution that's happening socially because of George Floyd's murder, um, has really galvanized me to step into activism in a way I never have before. And I was able to take on that a label that I was previously uncomfortable with because I learned what activism was from an alternative perspective. And I really like the theory of the three pillars of activism because I found my place. So the three pillars are number one, the activism that most people understand and see out in the world that involves protests and speaking directly to power and bringing awareness to issues. That's what most people think of when they think of activism. And that's one of the pillars. A secondary pillar is changing mindset. That's where my strength is, working with people to evolve their point of view and their understanding and expanding their awareness so that they see the world and each other in a different way, a more positive way, a more inclusive way. And then the third pillar is focusing of activism is focusing on structural change. So that's actually changing laws, changing procedures, changing lifestyle, changing behaviors. So making really concrete, real world changes in alignment with your cause. And so because now I understand those three pillars of activism, I believe sacred conversations is one way to introduce an essential element that I think is often ignored in activist activities. And that is, if you're an activist for something, not only should you be against what it is that's the opposite of your ideal, but you really need a part of your activity to create and encourage and make real the ideal that you're fighting for.
Mm.
So there has to be a creative aspect. Like the resistance is easy and it's typically reactive. And so being against something is usually where activism starts. But the point of the resistance is to experience something different. It's to embrace and live and implement a real change. And so, if you are going to actually create real world change, from my spiritual perspective, you have to be open to allow it.
Mm.
And so, having sacred conversation moves a person who is maybe leaning towards resistance into the experience of connection that's required for collaboration and the openness to shift and to understand each other and to be willing to see the world through a slightly different lens. That requires true, authentic connection. And so Sacred Conversations supports the mindset, the emotional place, and the openness that's required in order to create and establish true positive change between people, in systems, in society.
Well, that's very well said. And as you know, it's an internal piece about that too. Um, the problem with resistance is that if the resistance is just outward, nothing really can happen. It just becomes this whole them versus us thing where nothing really changes. It's just
Mm-hmm.
people battling forever. Yeah. So this sounds tremendously exciting. I'm glad that you're taking this next step with this process, and I'm gonna post a little thing as to where when and where your thing is, which will be basically next Thursday. But anyway, I'll post it for you. And gosh, if you're not enthusiastic after listening to Wendy Williams explain it, activists, you don't have a pulse. Well, maybe you have a pulse, but you haven't heard it yet. Let me be more gentle.
Well, thank you, Angela. I'm really excited about it. It's such a beautiful experience, and I'm grateful to you for creating such a sacred activity that can really profoundly change people and bless people with that
Yeah.
incredible connection.
And right back at you. I'm blessed to have you a part of this process and my life. So
Oh,
there's
thank
that.
you.
All right.